As far as the IDS 806 panel is concerned, it's a brand new launch. We're very excited about this panel. It's got a whole lot of new features in comparison with our 805. And from what we've seen from the market so far, things are really looking up and looking great for this panel. All right, let's get cracking. So, features on the IDS 806, easy installation, up to 2 keypads on a 4-wire keypad bus, and all other peripherals are plug-ons. Wide wireless, 8 programmable supervised zones, fully hybrid zone. All zones can be wired or wireless when using the X-Wave add-on module. Okay, we have 5 programmable outputs, onboard triggered outputs, which are 12-volt positive outputs, can be programmed to trigger on a panel event. Okay, non-volatile memory retains all programming and 1,000 event log data in the event of total power failure. Mobile app, full user control using the Harp Home app when using the Harp add-on module, arm, disarm, bypass zones, and receive alarm notifications. Okay, so mobile apps, as I say, it's you can control the 806 via your mobile app to arm, disarm, bypass zone, and obviously receive notifications. ID Swift compatible, you can do programming plus events up and downloads using IDS Swift, over-the-air programming, and panel updates when using the Harp add-on module. So great, if you've got a Harp modem, you can connect to this via to the IDS 806 via the Harp module, and you can up and download programming, you can change programming, and you can even do firmware updates on the panel with the over-the-air. I've just got a little video that starts now, just showing you the nice layout and the brand new box that we have. It also comes in a nice, handy, easy to use plastic box now, which is makes installations and also houses the battery. Okay, there's the box. Closed. There's the box open. Lots of space inside for wiring and obviously space for your battery. Okay, so the biggest change that you see straight off the bat is the size of and the layout of the board. We have the power here on the left, space for the siren on the left, and keypad on the left too. Down the bottom here we have auxiliaries and our 8 zones, and on the right we have our programmable outputs. As you might have noticed, the auxiliaries have got a lot more connectors, so you've got plus, 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 and minus, minus, minus. So you've got 3 spaces to connect all your auxiliary outputs on, which makes, again, easier for cabling. One of the other big changes is that our power is 18 to 24 volt DC. Because it's DC, remember, it's now essential that you get your polarity correct. So positive and negative need to be connected to positive, negative of this DC connector. And then on the board, we also have our serial connectors. These 2 are serial connectors over here. These facilitate your Harp modules and your IDS, your X-Wave wireless connector. So they plug straight onto the board and away you go. Pretty much plug and play on those devices. You'll also notice that this connector is at an odd angle. This is, we've done that way to prevent, obviously, the incorrect plugging of the devices. And then we have our standard connectors like our Tamper, our default, and our serial connector for connecting the external devices, not your hubs or your X-ways, but other devices that you need to connect. If you maybe need to connect to ID Swift or whatever, you can connect it onto that, and that'll also work. Okay. Although you can use a normal 24-volt DC power supply on the unit, we have also designed a new power supply, 24-volt power supply for this unit, which supplies a 1 amp. It's a 2 amp transformer, which allows a 1 amp and allows a spark up to 2 amps. Sorry, it's a 1 amp transformer which allows a spark up to 2 amps. Okay, then your siren connector. The siren connector connects directly to the siren output on the board, with the positive of the siren to the positive terminal and the negative to the negative terminal. The output can drive up to a 30-watt siren. The IDS 806 alarm panel can supply 1 amp of power to all peripherals, including the keypads and receivers. To check the power consumption is not exceeded, add all the devices' current consumption except for the radio transmitter that are being connected together and then subtracted from the total of 1 amp. So very important, ladies and gentlemen, to remember that you don't over utilize the auxiliary, as if you do, it takes away the charging of the battery, and then the battery will probably never fully charge if there's too much draw on the auxiliary port. Okay, there's our new snazzy keypad for the 806. As you can see, it's nice and colorful, and it's got a new sleek design to it. It is, however, backward compatible to the 805, so you can just, the back housing is backward compatible, so you can just take off the 805 panel and plug in the new 806 panel and just do the upgrade. There's no need to take the back panel off the wall and re-screw, and it's just a matter of plugging it on, clipping it off, plugging on the new 806 panel, and away you go. I mean keypad, sorry, not panel. Okay, keypad bus. Make sure when connecting the keypad bus that the DAT on the keypad is connected to the D on the 806, and the same with the CK that is connected to the C. LED connections. So on the keypad, you also have the LED connection. The keypad has a 3-volt LED output, which mimics the alarm LED. When the system is armed, the LED will come on. If a zone violates and an alarm condition is registered, the LED will flash the same as the armed LED on the as the panel does. Okay. The panic button. There's a panic button connection for the panic button, and no end line resistor is necessary. Due to no end line resistor, please test this regularly if you're going to be using this panic button. Okay, our zone, wiring up of our zones, they do require end of line resistors. Normally closed devices must be wired in series with an end of line resistor, and normally open devices in parallel to the end of the line resistor. And the diagram here shows the magnetic contact, normally closed, and a panic, normally open connectors and zones. So panic button, which is normally open. Some of the panic buttons have both, but let's call it, this one is a normally open one, and the door mag normally closed. As you can see, it gets connected in series, and the other one gets connected in parallel. So normally closed is in series, and your normally open is in parallel. My apologies there. As you can see by this diagram here, I was a little bit confused there. Okay. So important to connect that, or else your zones will obviously show open all the time, or they won't trigger at all. Okay, so 5 programmable outputs. Outputs are used to trigger other devices with a positive 12 volts. The output can either be set to pulse or to latch. Pulse is when the output will go from no voltage up to 12 volts, and with no intervention goes back to 0 volts. Like a spring, if you compress it and then leave it alone, it'll automatically decompress. Latch is when the output will go from 0 to 12 volts and stay there until something else tells it to go back to 0 volts, similar to a light switch. Again, just to explain this latch and pulse some more, it's really a matter of the latch switching on and off by itself. The pulse switching on and off by itself. So when you trigger something, the pulse will do exactly that, like a pulse. It'll switch on for 2 seconds, switch off, whereas a latch needs to be told that it's going to switch on, and then something else needs to tell it to switch off. If nothing tells it to switch off, that means it's going to stay on all the time. So that's the difference between your latch and your pulse. So these are the peripherals and the plug-in on the peripherals. As you can see, they plug on into those sockets, and then they just plug on and on top of each other, which makes it easy to just add those peripherals on, and easy way to go. Okay. As you can see, the installation peripherals couldn't be easier. Simply plug onto the IDS 806 panel and you're up and running. No need to run power or data wires to the different devices. Okay. Currently, there are 2 plug-in devices, the X-Wave plug, which was the first one that you saw in the video, and the HARP plug-on, which was the second one with the aerial. The newer HARP plug-ons don't have the aerial that sticks out at the top. So this aerial doesn't sit out like that. It's actually got a cabled aerial that plugs onto the back of the box, which you don't see, but it actually brings it outside the box to make it obviously more aesthetically pleasing and give the aerial a little bit more boost. The X-Wave plug-on allows you to add wireless detectors to the IDS 806, as well as add X-Wave remotes. So dual purpose, remote, and the wireless receivers. Wireless detectors. Okay. That means you can add wireless detectors and remotes to the same peripheral device, and you don't need to wire it to anything. Simply plug it on. The X-Wave remote is a special remote that can work on other receivers as well as the X-Wave plug-on. However, other remotes will not work on the X-Wave plug-on. Big note there, guys. You've got to get a specific remote to work with this specific X-Wave plug-on. Yeah, the X-Wave allows you to arm, disarm, stay arm, trigger, panic, or even trigger onboard PMGs. Okay, the HARP plug-on allows you to report to the monitoring company that is using the HARP base station. It allows you to fully control the IDS 806 using the HARP Home app. That is, you can arm, disarm, bypass zones, trigger outputs, receive notifications, all from a mobile app. and all companies that have hub contact contracts, you can send and receive programming remotely using IDS Swift. So no need to go out on site for a small programming change. The most impressive, you can upgrade the IDS 806 panel straight from the hub platform. So big benefits there, guys. It's getting to a point where you don't actually, other than obviously the installation, but if you've got a small change that you need to do on the panel, like anything that really needs to be done on the panel, you can pretty much do that through IDS Swift, and if you have a hub modem, you can do that remotely. I'm actually just going to unplug my panel here quickly, and I'm going to show you guys what the peripherals look like physically. So I'm just going to switch you over to my camera. Hopefully you guys can see my camera now. Assuming I'm sharing my camera. Yeah, okay. Just move my keypad out the way. So this is the physical hub device. As you can see, it's got the black connectors at the top that are offset the same as on the board. And if you turn it upside down, you will see the little pins this side and this side, which allow the devices to be piggybacked on top of each other. So this is the X-Wave 2 device, and this is the hub devices. Whoops, try to get that into the video a little bit. There we go. So there's a little aerial for the X-Wave, and all that basically happens is when you plug them on, the two devices plug into each other. Obviously got to line up the pins, and then that device then gets plugged onto your board. Just move my board panel over here. Go. Then that just plugs straight onto the board. And like I mentioned, the aerial is a little different. This is like a cable aerial. I'm sure you guys can see it. And then that just screws onto the device for the hub. Okay. Perfect stuff. Put that back into place. Power up my device. Yeah, so if you have a look at your 806 on the board, you have your default button. So to default the system, you basically will remove the power. So the panel is off, obviously your battery and your main power. Press and hold the default button and then reconnect your power. So you can either connect your power from your battery or from your AC with your 24-volt DC converter. And then once it's powered up, you hold that for 3 seconds, power it up, hold it for 3 seconds while it's powering, and then you release your button, and that should then factory reset your panel back to factory default settings. Okay, programming of the IDS 806 is putting values into a location. A location is an area of memory that stores a value to control a system when a task needs to be performed. Okay, each location controls different tasks or a different aspect of a task. The value that is entered is what controls the way that the system performs the task. There are many locations controlling many functions within the system, and understanding what each of these locations control and how they affect the working of the system is very important. Okay, take note of the LEDs as you go into installer programming and after entering a location and after entering a value. Any attempt to enter invalid data will result in an error beep, 3 short beeps. Okay? The away LED will remain on after the error beep. Re-enter the correct data. There's no need to hash to exit the location. So if you do get 3 beeps, you put something in wrong, you're in programming, you put something in wrong, it gives you the 3 beeps. Not necessary to go hash, hash, hash all the way back out and then log in again. You just put in the right value and you can continue doing what you were trying to do. Okay. So your LEDs are an indicator of the locations. To read the values that is in a location, each zone is given a value. The values are added up for each zone that is on. Okay, so as you can see here, our values are 1 is 1. If the LED 1 is on, then the value is 1. If LED 2 is on, then the value is 2. When LED 3 is on, value is 4, and this 4 is on is 8, etc., etc., etc. So simple way for me to remember them is I just add them together. So 1 is 1, obviously. So 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is then 4. 4 plus 4 is then 8. And that's how I remember. 8 and 8 is 16, and so forth. So it's a quick way for me to remember. Use it, don't use it. That's good. Right, so just if, for example, let's say LED 1 was on and LED 3 were on, we take those values, we add them together, and we get a value of 5. So 1 and 4 will give us a value of 5. If, for example, let's call it 4 and 1 are on, then obviously we'll get a value of 9. All right. So those, trying to get those, understand these values, obviously will help in the programming of the panel, but you can always refer back to a manual if you get stuck. Okay, so programming themselves and locations. There are 2 ways to reset the system back to factory default. The hardware button, like we explained earlier, or via programming. The programming way gives us 3 options for defaulting. 0 will reset all locations to factory default, as shown in the default columns in the programming list. So you'll see in your actual manual, your installer manual, you will see that things will be highlighted in gray. That just means that that's the default programming. So if you do a reset all locations, that's what will reset it to, whatever is set back to that gray in the manual. Okay. All user codes will also be defaulted back to the master codes, will become 1, 2, 3, 4, as with the hardware reset. Okay. 1, if you select 1 will default the master code to 1, 2, 3, 4 only. Nothing else will be defaulted. Okay. 2 enables all reporting events. If any events have been disabled, this will re-enable them back to what they were as default. In other words, all of them. Okay, so locations 1 to 8, this is basically programming your zones and what your zones are going to, how your zones are going to act, and what their priorities are and what you want your zones to be used for. So just to run through that, a zone type is how a zone acts when the alarm is armed or disarmed. A value is associated to each zone type, and when entered into a zone location, it changes that zone type to the type that it represents. So let's take, for example, 0, which is disabled. Okay, entry-exit zone. Entry-exit zone is a zone that allows entry into the building when the alarm is armed and allows the exiting of the building during arming. A follower zone. A follower zone is disabled during arming until the system is armed. Then once armed, the zone is active and will violate as soon as the violation occurs. When the system is armed and an entry-exit zone is triggered, the follower zone is disabled until a valid user code is entered. If not, then becomes active again. So follower is basically, it's a follower of the entry-exit zone. So if you, for example, have your keypad in the middle of the house and you need to open and close a door to exit, but you happen to bypass your lounge, which has got a passive on it, the passive will become a follower zone. So as soon as you arm it, it will disarm the follower zone. It will deactivate the follower zone, so it doesn't trigger the alarm, and then you can exit out of the building through your entry-exit zone or your door, or whatever the case is. If you then come in, it does it in reverse. You obviously open your entry-exit zone, your follower zone gets disabled, and you can then get to your alarm panel without setting off the alarm. If your follower zone is activated without your entry-exit zone, that means that the alarm will actually go off without, as a normal zone, rather than waiting for the beeps of the entry-exit. So if follower zone goes off without the entry-exit, it's going to set the alarm off. Okay. Audible priority. Regardless of whether the panel is armed or not, a violation of an audible priority zone will cause the control panel to register an alarm condition and sound the siren. Okay. Audible instant. If a panel is armed, the violation of an instant zone will cause the control panel to immediately register an alarm condition and sound the siren. Okay. So different audio priority doesn't matter whether the panel is armed or disarmed, and it's still going to set off the siren. And the audible instant is only if the panel is armed will it set off the siren. Okay. Arm disarm. A violation of an arm disarm zone will cause the panel to arm or disarm depending on the current state. The end of line resistor is required. So arm disarm you can basically use for remotes. If you want to arm and disarm, you can set up one of those normal remotes onto one of the zones, and you can use it to arm and disarm your panel. So it does exactly the opposite to whatever its state is in at the moment. So if it's armed, it'll disarm. If it's disarmed, it'll arm. Silent priority. Regardless of whether the panel is armed or not, a violation of a silent priority will not cause the siren to sound, but will report the appropriate codes programmed into the relevant location to your central control center. Okay, silent instant. If a panel is armed, the violation of a silent instant zone will cause the control panel to immediately register an alarm condition, but the siren will not sound. And again, it will send that signal to the control room, but the siren won't sound. That's if you want like a quiet panic or something, you don't want to alert the people that the alarm has actually gone off. Yeah. Secondary entry exit. A secondary entry exit zone is a zone that allows entry into the building when the alarm is armed and allows the exiting of the building during arming. So it's just a secondary entry exit, which allows you to obviously enter and exit in a second place rather than just one place. Okay. Fire zone. A violation of a fire zone will cause the siren. A violation of a fire zone will cause the siren to sound regardless of whether the panel is armed or not. the siren will sound intermittently, 1 second on, 1 second off. So just to demonstrate that, I'm sure you guys will hear it in the background. I'm just going to trigger my fire. You'll hear it go 1 second on, 1 second off. Thanks. Hope you all heard that. Okay, location 11, Tamper per zone. Tamper is a way of monitoring a device for any type of interference without having to use extra cable. Tamper is always active, even when the alarm is disarmed. Okay, so 0 is for disable and 1 is for enable. Okay. When enabling a tamper per zone, the 3K3 end of line resistor is replaced with a 12K and a 4K7 ohm resistor, which are placed in parallel. Excuse me. The 4K7 ohm resistor represents the zone, and the 12K represents the tamper. Wireless detectors will report a tamper regardless of their location. Okay, so if we have a look at how this is, for example, a passive, you'll see your 4K7 resistor and your 12K resistors. They're wired from your normally closed contact and your tamper contact back to your zone. So this really just allows you to be able to do a tamper on a passive or a nag or whatever, whichever one you're using, and it allows you still to use the 2-wire system rather than having to run a separate wire for each tamper that you want to actually do. A lot of the guys don't use the resistors, and they just bridge the tamper and the normal and the normally closed. It does work, but we don't recommend it because you actually don't get the tamper reporting. You will just get a normal trigger on the passive rather than getting actually that it's a tamper alarm and not just a normal alarm. So if somebody is tampering, basically you won't know it unless you actually wire the tamper up with a 4K7 or 12K. It'll just be as if the passive is normal, normally triggering. And because of, you also want to use the tamper in the correct manner when the alarm is disarmed. The guys could be tampering with the passive while the alarm is disarmed, and you actually want to know about that tamper. Whereas if it's disarmed and you've just breached the tamper and then normally closed, it's just going to be a matter of, well, it's disarmed, so you won't actually get the signal of a tamper. Okay, so your wireless zones. All 8 zones can be configured into a wireless zone. Note, any wired zones that are changed to wireless zones will no longer work as a wired zone. Or if a wired detector is connected, it will no longer violate the zone. So the minute you take a wireless zone and you replace any of the 8 zones that are on the panel itself, then the panel zone basically gets disabled. And the wireless zone that you have programmed takes priority. Okay. So to add a wireless detector, you go into location 260, followed by star. If a zone LED is on, then it already has an X-ray device learned onto the zone. Okay, so if you go into 260, if there's no lights on, that means no wireless zones have been programmed. If there is a zone light on, then that means that specific zone has been programmed as a wireless. Okay. So you go to location 260, star, then you go to the zone number star that you want to learn as a wireless. So anything obviously from 1 to 8. Okay, and then you put your zone number and your star to learn the wireless detector, and all LEDs will be off, and they're ready to receive the new X-Wave device serial number. So once you've selected your zone and your star, all the LEDs will be off. You then go and you tamper your X-Wave device. The keypad will beep to indicate that it has learned the X-Wave detector, and the zone LEDs will indicate signal strength. Okay, press start to save X-Wave device. Okay, so incorrect or pre-allocated serial numbers will result in a 3 beep error tone, and the menu will keep waiting for a valid entry. Okay. To delete the detector, you do exactly the same. You go back into location 260, followed by star. If the zone LEDs are on, it has an X-Wave device learned to that zone. Enter the zone number you want to delete, followed by 10, star, and the keypad will beep to indicate the wireless device has been deleted. Okay. Okay, signal power of the receiver. Okay, if you enter location 260 followed by star. If a zone LED is on, then it has an X-Wave device learned to that zone. Enter the zone number followed by star to check the signal strength. Trigger the X-Wave device. The zone LEDs will indicate the signal strength. Okay. The signal strength is displayed from the bottom to the top. So if LED 8 is only on, and that is the worst signal strength. If all LEDs from 8 to 1 are on, that is the best signal strength. As long as you have 8 to 5 on, that is the lowest acceptable signal strength. So basically 50% is the lowest acceptable signal strength for your devices. So again, from the bottom to the top, from 8 to 1, if all of those LEDs are on, full signal strength. If just 8 is on its own, that's the worst signal strength. That remote detector or will not then have a sufficient signal strength to be able to talk back to the panel. Okay, so the minimum 8 to 5, all the LEDs must be on from 8 to 5. That'll give you your minimum signal strength. Okay, location 261. Each X-Wave wireless detector is supervised. Therefore, each wireless detector has to contact the IDS 806 alarm panel after a set time. This setting is a global setting and affects all wireless zones. Okay, enter location 261, followed by star. Into the supervision option 1 or 2 for time required for each detector, followed by a star. Okay. So the supervisory options, zone 1 is equal to 3 hours, and zone 2 is equal to 24 hours. So the 3 hours and the 24 hours is how often that remote wireless device is going to report back to the IDS 806 to confirm that it actually belongs or is out there and that it is active. Also, just remember that the more you send are you there signal back to the 806, the less your battery is going to last. So generally 24 hours is better than 3, but if it's area that needs to be monitored more often than 3 hours, although it's going to use a little bit more battery. Okay. Okay, I'll show you a video. I'll show you a video of how to add the detector quickly, and then we'll continue. Okay, so let's get cracking. Location 9, entry exit options. Okay, this location changes the way the alarm reacts when the alarm needs to be armed. If any of the options below are chosen and are not met, the alarm will not be ready to arm. Entry exit zones must be cleared, follower zones must be cleared, and entry exit delay enabled. Yes, I'm just going to show you quickly on the alarm panel what happens when I violate a follower zone and when I violate a entry exit zone. So the alarm panel is not, let me just quickly switch over here to the keypad again. Okay, so my panel's not on to anything. So if you just keep an eye on your LED 1 and 2 over here and your ready LED, I'm not quite sure why my panel's not saying it's ready. Okay. Okay. So if you keep your eye on your 1 and 2 and the ready LED, you will see when I violate a zone 2, which is my follower. Come on. So you'll see zone 2 is flashing now to indicate that it's been violated, but my ready light is still on because it's a follower zone. Okay. If I then do that with my entry exit zone, we'll see now my LED has gone off, and my entry exit zone is flashing to say that it's violated, but my ready light has gone off. So I can't now disarm my panel. Okay. But if my 2 is violated, then it means that I can still arm my panel. Okay. Okay, location 20, primary entry delay. The time period for opening a primary entry exit zone to a person having to enter a valid user code before the alarm is triggered. Default is 30 seconds. So as default, you've got 30 seconds from the minute you trigger your entry exit zone to the time that you have to put a code in to disarm your alarm panel. Secondary entry, location 10 is for your secondary entry delay. This is the time the alarm will allow between the second entry zone being opened and a valid user code being entered before the alarm is activated. So that default on that one is 1 minute. Okay, exit delay period. So that's location 18. And this is the time a person has from entering their code or using the quick arm key, number 1, to exiting the building through the entry exit zone without setting off the alarm. That's 30 seconds. Okay. Location 12, arming options. These options determine how the system will arm and if the system should arm depending on 2 conditions. Firstly, quick arm, the ability to arm the system by holding the 1 key down until the system begins to arm. Entry exit delay, entry exit delay with alarm zone. When a zone is an arm disarm zone, the key switch or a remote receiver transmitter is being used to arm the system. So if you're using, if it is set as an entry-exit delay, then that'll be the delay if you're using a trigger to entry-exit, like a remote receiver, to be able to arm the system. Okay, forced arming. This option is to be used with much caution. This will allow the system to arm even if the zones are violated. Again, use with caution with this one, because it's pointless having a zone violated and the system armed, because then you're not ever going to know whether that system is actually going to trigger again or not. Okay. Stay arming option. Stay arming is the ability to arm the system and at the same time have selected zones bypassed automatically. All active zones will be instant zones, including entry-exit zone. To stay armed, press and hold 5 until armed light comes on. Note that by default, if you arm the panel and don't open and close the entry zone, the panel will auto-arm as a stay arm. Okay, so if you use if you arm the panel either by the quick arm or using your code, if you don't violate your entry-exit zone, it will automatically go into your stay arm. Okay, location 16, siren toot on arm and disarm. When the alarm is away arm, the siren will sound once, and when disarmed from an away stay armed state, it will sound twice. Default is off. Okay, location 802, auto arm time. The time entered into this location will be the time the system will automatically arm itself each day. Okay, so auto arm, obviously you need to set an auto disarm or not. Auto arm will just automatically arm. Okay, location 14, silent keypad panic. If this option is enabled, then when the panic key P is pressed, a panic will be registered, but the siren will not sound. Okay? If the system is communicating to a security company, the signal will be sent to the security company, though. That's just a silent panic rather than a audible panic. 0 is disabled, 1 is equal to enabled. Okay. Location 15, silent alarm. This option will register an alarm, but the siren will not sound. And if connected to a security company, the signal will be sent to them. Okay. 0 again is disabled, and 1 again is enabled. Okay, location 17, siren timeout period. How long the siren will sound once an alarm has been triggered and no user code has been entered to cancel the alarm. Default 2 minutes. In short, how long the siren is going to go off for once the alarm has been triggered before it resets itself. Okay, default 2 minutes for the siren to make a noise. Okay, location 19, AC fail and restore time. This is the time the alarm system waits for the AC to be off or back on again before it reports back to the alarm monitoring company. The trouble light will begin to flash immediately. Default 2 minutes. Okay, so you don't always want your alarm company to be notified if every single time there's a power failure. So as default, we leave a 2 minute gap just in case, I don't know, somebody's plugged something in and the electricity has tripped. You don't need your alarm company to know about that. So we give it a default of 2 minutes. If you do want to know every time the power comes on as a monitoring company, then obviously you need to change this. But normally, yeah, default is 2 minutes. It should be sufficient enough so that it doesn't report every time somebody plugs something in and they took their mains or whatever the case is. Obviously, if there's load shedding for an hour or two, after 2 minutes, it'll report to say that there's been a power failure to the monitoring company. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. Location 136 to 139 is basically your installer codes. This is where you go and change your installer code. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, it's essential that you guys change this installer code. Everybody knows the default installer code is 9999. And if you don't change this, then any user or any person can get into it and mess up your programming again. Okay. Okay, location 144, trouble display. This location enables displaying a trouble condition if a fault occurs for a siren tamper. Okay, so that's your display for trouble condition for a siren tamper. 145, trouble display 2. This location enables displaying a trouble condition if a fault occurs for your keypad tamper. Okay, so the 44 is siren tamper and 45 is keypad tamper. Okay. 146, keypad sleep delay. As default, it's set to 128 seconds. Choose the value that represents the time the keypad to wait before switching all LEDs off. So default is 8, is 128 seconds. So if you have a look on in your installer guide under location 146, you will see that there is a little guide to tell you what represents what as far as seconds and milliseconds is concerned. Okay, if I can find it, there we go. So 0 is obviously disabled, 1 is 16 seconds, and so forth, and 8 is 128 seconds. Okay, so we just need to refer back to that chart to see how long you want it to before your keypad actually goes to sleep. Okay, any touch of the keys will re-enable the keypad. So you can obviously, yeah, that's what it's to see. And location 147, auto test delay, set the value required. Set the value required for how often the test report is required. As default, it's every 24 hours. Okay, so 0 is 24 hours, 1 is 48 hours, and 6 reports every 7 days. Okay. Location 149, keypad buzz options. There are 2 conditions which will cause the keypad to beep and give an alert of the conditions. Location 150, hardware tamper enabled. This is to enable what tampering would be monitored, siren tamper and box tamper. Okay, location 800, system time. This will set the system clock. This is important for trying to read information from the event logs. Okay, so we don't display the system time obviously because it's a LED keypad, but yeah, system time is essential, especially when it comes to having to read logs or etc. etc. Okay. Location 801, auto test time. This is the time of day the system will send a test signal and to the monitoring company to confirm that it can communicate. Okay. So default, I think this is set to 12 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. Just checking the menu here quickly. It's actually set for 1 o'clock in the morning as default. Okay, 1 o'clock in the morning is the default for the auto test time. Okay, location 803, system date. This will set the system date format. Your format is day, day, month, month, year, year. Yes, I hope everybody's good with that. So setting your time and your date on that, what's the name? Just remember that your format when putting in the system date is day, day, month, month, year, year. And that your system time is a 24-hour format. So for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1300. Okie programmable outputs. You've obviously got the 5 programmable outputs on your panel. This is just going to give you a little bit more of an explanation of what and how they work. Okay, outputs are used to trigger many different devices, the most common being a radio transmitter, which transmits signals back to the alarm monitoring company. The IDS 806 has 5 positively triggered outputs. Each output triggers with direct current DC 12 volts and can supply approximately 100 milliamp of current. If more current is required, please use a 12 volt positive trigger relay to supply current from a different power source. Okay, so yeah, as it says, we only supply 100 milliamp, which is sufficient to drive most devices, mostly LEDs and that type of stuff. So if you do need a bigger one, rather put a 12 volt relay in and drive the device that you're wanting to trigger off that 12 volt relay rather than driving it off the panel, the panel programmable output, because you could blow it and obviously then it becomes unusable. It shouldn't damage the panel itself, but obviously it will disable or make that specific output unusable. Okay. The outputs can be set as pulse or latch. Pulse, the output will rise to 0 volt, from 0 volt to 12 volts, and remain at 12 volts for 3 seconds and return back to 0 volts. So, like we mentioned earlier, it puts power to your LED or whatever the case is for 3 seconds, and then it switches itself off again. So auto switch on, switches on by switches on by the trigger, and then but will automatically switch off again. Whereas a latch is a little bit different. The output will rise from 0 to 12 volts and remain in that state until another trigger forces it to go back to 0 volts. Okay, so similar to a light switch. So if you switch your light switch on, the light comes on, it'll stay on until such a time as somebody goes and switches that switch again to switch it off. So that's a latch. So a latch will switch on by a trigger, but then it needs to be told off. It needs to be told by another second trigger to be able to switch off. Okay. Unlike the pulse, like I mentioned earlier, the pulse will automatically switch on via a trigger, but will automatically switch off again. Okay. A latch needs both the commands. It needs an on command and it needs an off command. Okay. Hope that's all good for you guys. Okay, so programmable outputs, locations for the different programmable outputs. Just see there's a couple of questions here. Okay, so the guys are still asking about the recording of the training. We are recording the training and we can email that training through to you. So don't worry. Okay, let's carry on with that. Locations 22 to 38. These are the I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, sorry about that. I just saw some funny stuff happening on my screen here. Okay, let's continue. Location 22 to 38. Location 22. Alarm is alarm. Burglary alarm registered. Programmable PGM2 and it will pulse. Okay, so 23 is panic. Panic triggered. So PGM1 and that's also a pulse. Low battery. Your battery needs checking. 25 auto test. Panel does a test to the monitoring company. 26 duress. A duress code can be entered. PGM1 pulse. So guys, let me just see. There's something happening on my screen here which is not meant to be happening. Just see what's going on here. Okay, anyway, I don't see it happening any longer. Okay, I don't have the locations up on the screen. If you do look in your manuals, it should show you in your manuals these locations. But yeah, it doesn't come up on the screen. It's just the programmable outputs, just running through those, what they mean. You'll need to just refer to your manual and have a look in your manual to see them. Okay, so we'll just go back to low battery. So 24 low battery needs checking. 25 auto test. Panel does a test to the monitoring company. 26 is duress. A duress code can be entered. PGM1 pulse. So it'll pulse PGM1. So switch on, 3 seconds, switch off. 27 AC fail. Alarm loss. AC fail. Alarm loses the 16-volt AC. 28 is close on. Away armed. That's PGM3 is on. 29 is open, disarm. Alarm is disarmed. PGM3 off. Okay, 30 is AC restore. 16-volt AC is restored. 31 is cancel. The alarm is triggered and a valid user code has been entered. Okay. 32 is fire. Triggered when the F1 key is pressed or a fire zone is triggered. 33 is medical. The M key is pressed. Strobe. So that's 34 is strobe. This output will latch when the alarm is registered and will only unlatch once a valid user code is entered. Okay. 35, if a tamper is a tamper, If Tamper per zone or zone is made a Tamper zone and a Tamper condition is triggered, it will output, the output will be triggered. So 0 is disabled or 1 enabled. Okay, 36 silent panic. The sound will not sound, but the output will trigger once the program to alert the monitoring company. PGM1 is pulse. Okay, 38 chime. If a chime zone is triggered in the unarmed state, this output will trigger. Okay. 41 DL complete. So in other words, download via software is complete. Okay, so 41 is the only one that actually doesn't show up on the installer manual. So it's a little extra that we've just added on and doesn't show up on the installer manual, because I doubt many people will actually trigger a output to show that the download is complete. Okay, 158 to 165 zone programmable outputs. Sorry, 158 to 165 zone programmable outputs. If a zone is violated and an output has been associated with it, that output will trigger. Okay, just take note that if a zone is only active when the alarm is armed, i.e. an instance zone, then the output will only activate when the system is armed. If a zone is always active, i.e. panic zone, then the output will trigger when the zone is triggered. Okay. Okay, 166, low battery restore output. 169, siren tamper output. When the siren is tampered, the output set here will trigger. 170 is your box tamper output. If a switch is connected to a box tamper pins on the board and the box tamper monitoring is enabled, a violation of the switch would cause an output to trigger. So again, your tamper obviously needs to be enabled and it needs to be wired to your box tamper, your box switch or your box tamper. Okay, I'm just going to show you how to program output 5 to pulse on a medical. So let me quickly do that for you guys. Switch it to my camera here. There we go. Set my keypad up properly. Okay, so I'm going to go into programming. Application 33. Okay, so I have already got my PMG set to 5, so it's 3 and 3, which is a value of 4, and 1, which is a value of 1. Add those two together, that could give me a value of 5. Just going to put it in again, 5 star, hash that, and now with a little bit of luck, should see my LED. If I can get it to show you where my LED is. There's my little LED wired to PMG5. I'm just going to go medical. As you can see, the LED then comes on. Not very bright, unfortunately. I've got too much light in this room. Make less light. Do that again. There we go. All right, perfect stuff. Oops. Back to sharing that. Okay, location 43 to 46 for communication. The IDS 806 only commates, yeah, sure. The IDS 806 only communicates using contact ID on the serial output. Therefore, the only programming you will need to do is to report signals is an account code. Okay, so yeah, just so the IDS 806 only communicates via contact ID. It doesn't have a dialer on, just FYI. So the only way we communicate is via the hub add-on module. And to communicate, all we need to do is program that account code, which we can do in location 43 to 46, which is your primary communication account code. This is a 4-digit code that identifies the alarm to the monitoring company. Any number shorter than 4 digits must have a 0 entered before it. Oops. Okay, other reportings. All reporting is done in a contact ID format, and all locations 80 to 132 are to enable or disable reporting events. By default, all reporting is on. Location 80 to 132 requires either a 0 to disable reporting or a 1 to enable reporting. So the different reportings that you can get, the reportings can be set as the following. It can be set for duress, keypad panic, fire, medical, keypad tamper, zone violation, restore, bypass, tamper and shutdown, AC fail and restore, siren tamper, open and close and cancel, auto tests, download complete, low battery and restore, and a box tamper. Okay. Okay, location 196 is for your serial code programming. This location is here to manually sync the IDS 806 to the HARP app. Enter any 6 digits in this location when asked to sync to the HARP home app, should I say. So to pair the HARP home app, you basically go to location 196, followed by star, enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or any other 6-digit number, followed by star. This must be done while the HARP unit is connected and powered on. So HARP unit does need to be on and powered and basically connected to the network. Then you'll be able to sync this back to the app. Okay, so to view trouble conditions on your keypad, there on your screen you will see there's the descriptions of which LEDs mean what. So 1 is your wireless trouble. 2 will be your failure to communicate. 3 will be mains power failure. 4 will be low system battery. 6 is your siren tamper or fuse blown. And 7, keypad has experienced a tamper. Okay, so tamper for your keypad is 7. Your tamper for your siren is 6. Okay, I'll show you a quick video to just explain that a little bit further as far as your wireless trouble is concerned. You'll see how it displays it and what it actually does. Okay, I hope that was descriptive. Welcome back. So we're just going to go through the LEDs on the keypad and what the meaning of those are. So your armed LED, which is the top one with the lock, shows the armed status of the system. So if it's on, it means it's armed. Off, obviously unarmed. Okay. Ready LED, one with the green one with a little tick, shows if the alarm is ready to be armed. On is ready to be armed. Off is not ready to be armed. Okay, zone LEDs shows the status of each zone. Away LED shows the mode the system has armed in. So on is away armed. Off, stay armed. Armed LED on. Off, disarmed with the arm LED off. Okay, so those two work in conjunction with each other to give you your different statuses. Power LED shows if there are any troubles. So on is equal to AC power is on. If it's flashing, it means there's a trouble somewhere. Okay, so just to run through put my little pointer device on, just to run through the meanings of each key switch. Key 1, which is your quick away. By pressing this key until the exit beeps begin, will away arm the system without having to enter a user code. So exactly what it says, quick away. Remember that you do need to trigger your entry-exit zone in order for that not to go into stay on. Okay. 2 is your chime, and this is to enter which zones are to beep the keypad if they are violated while the system is disarmed. So your chiming is for if you want, for example, entrance to a store or something where there's not always somebody in front. As soon as somebody opens the door, it'll go ping, ping, ping on your keypad to indicate that zone has been violated. Okay, 3 is your stay. To enable the zone which are to be automatically bypassed when armed in a stay mode. Okay, so those holding the 3 key down will take you to program the keys that you want to bypass. I mean, it'll take you to zones that you can have bypassed for your stay. Okay, 4 to enter the zone which are to buzz the keypad if violated when the system is armed in the stay mode. Okay, so that's just to buzz while the system is in stay mode. The 5 key, which is quick stay. This key will arm the system in stay mode, and if any zones have been enabled, they will be bypassed automatically. Okay, 6, which is stay and go. This will arm in a stay mode, but all entry-exit zones will work. This will arm in stay mode, but all entry-exit zones will work as if armed in away mode. Okay. Key 7 is your trouble view. If the power indicator is flashing, press the key for 3 seconds, and the zone indicator will show you the trouble condition is. So again, yeah, exactly that, like we mentioned earlier. Hold it down for 3 seconds, and you'll get your troubles. Okay. 8 key, if an activation of a system has taken place, to see which zone or zones triggered, press and hold this key for 3 seconds. So 8 key is to show if any activations and what zone they have activated on. Your P key is a panic. It's a panic condition, will be activated when the key is pressed for 1 second. The M is for medical condition, will be activated if the key is pressed for 1 second. And the F is a fire condition, will be activated if the key is pressed for 1 second. So pretty self-explanatory. And the labels, all, as you can see, are all on the keypads. So that's a quick rundown of what the keypad means and the meaning of those keys. Okay, user operations. Away arming. Away arming is when the system arms with all entry-exit zones, actively monitoring any violations. Okay, to trigger entry-exit cycle. The entry-exit cycle is the time programmed to allow a person to either exit or enter and insert their user code without the system going into an alarm state. There are 2 ways of arming the system. 1, enter user code and exit through the entry-exit zone during the arm cycle. And 2, press and hold the 1 key until the exit delay begins to then exit. Okay, so press and hold the 1 key until you start hearing a beep, and then obviously exit out of the entry-exit zone. Okay, stay arming. Stay arming is for the protection of the people within the building. This mode allows automatic bypassing of internal detectors, while arming exterior detectors, allowing people inside to freely move around. But if someone tries to enter or exit, the alarm is triggered. Okay, so stay arming, or when you go to sleep, you stay armed. Exterior can be armed. Interior allows people to move around. So it just gives a little bit of extra protection while you're asleep or inside. If you have external beams, even better. At least they'll go off if somebody does walk around the garden. Okay, stay and go. This function offers both away arm and stay arm functionality. The system will arm in the stay mode, but all entry-exit zones will be active. Okay, bypassing zones. Bypassing a zone is disabling the zone, normally used if a zone is faulty and the system needs to be armed, but will not due to the zone being violated. So bypassing a zone is if a zone is violated, that you can bypass it and still arm your system. Okay. All bypass zones will be cleared when the alarm is disarmed. So once disarmed, all those bypass zones will be disarmed again. So if you're having an issue with a passive that keeps triggering or is just permanently on and you can't, until such a time as you can get out to the customer, you can show them how to bypass the zone and obviously then address it when and if they're available. So chime zones are zones that have been selected to beep the keypad if opened while the system is disarmed. This allows a person to be alerted if a violation takes place in an area that has nobody to monitor that area. Okay, to enable a time zone, press and hold 3. Press and hold the 3 key for 3 seconds. Press the zone number. Then select all zones required to. Then select all the zones required for the time zones. When completed, press the hash key to remove the zone. Follow the same. Okay. So once you're completed, you press the hash key. If you want to remove those zones from the chime zone, then you just follow the same procedure. 3 with the zone numbers and hash, that'll remove it, or 3 zone number and hash, that'll add them back on again. All right. Stay zones. These are the zones that will be automatically disabled when the system arms in a stay mode. 2 stay profiles can be created. To enter into a second profile, press and hold the mode, then 9, then profile number, and then star. Just take a note here that when in this mode, the zones are flashing, this indicates the buzz zones. When arming in a stay mode, the profile that is selected via the previous procedure will be used. Buzz zones. A buzz zone is only active when the alarm is armed in a stay mode. A buzz zone, when opened, will buzz the keypad for 30 seconds, allowing a user code to be entered to disarm the system before going into the alarm condition. Okay. If a zone is flashing, this indicates a zone that is selected as a stay zone. When entering this option, you will not be able to select these zones as buzz zones. Okay, the IDS 806 panel has 15 programmable user codes. Code 1 is your master code, default 1234. Code 2 to 13 is your general user code. Code 14 is your mains code, and your code 15 is your duress code. Okay, but by default, only one code is factory programmed, and that is your master code. By default, is by default programmed as 1234. To program any other codes into the system, the master code must be used. Okay, adding general user codes. General user code can only arm and disarm the alarm. Okay, so general user code obviously cannot be used to program another user code, only the master code. Okay. Press and hold star key for 3 seconds, enter your master code, in this case, default 1234 star, then the user number 5, for example, and then user code 3456. So the user number will be anything between your 2 and your 13, and then you enter your user code, example 3456 star, and that'll save that 3456 as your a new user code. Okay, adding a mates code. Mates code is a code that can only disarm an alarm if it has been used to arm the alarm in the first place. Okay. If a general user code has been used to arm the alarm, the mates code cannot disarm the alarm. Okay. So to do that, you go into your star, you hold your star key down for 3 seconds again, enter your master code, 1234 star in this case, user number 14, because 14 relates to your mates code, and then put in the user code that you would like for the mates code. So something different, 4432 or something, whichever one you decide, and then start. Okay, so adding a duress code. A duress code is a code that will disarm the alarm and activate the panic condition when used. If a system is connected to an armed response center, a duress code will be sent indicating that someone is being forced to disarm the system. So, yeah, like it says, duress code will disarm the system, but it will also send a duress disarm to your monitoring company. Okay, for this, you hold the start key down again for 3 seconds, put in your master code, 1234 star. User number is 15 in this case for duress code, and you enter the new user code and then start. Okay, remotes. The IDS alarm has a capability to learn remote transmitter to any of the 15 user codes that has been added to the system via an X-Wave wireless receiver. The X-Wave receiver and X-Wave key lock transmitter remotes are purchased separately. So when you do purchase the X-Wave receiver, remember to purchase your remotes if you're going to be using those remotes on that X-Wave receiver. There are 3 formats of remote transmitters: 1 button, 2 button, and a 4 button. A remote transmitter can transmit either a standard IDS key lock signal compatible with older remote receivers, or a new X-Wave transmitter protocol. Okay, big note here because this caught me out the other day. By default, buttons 1 and 3 are pre-programmed to transmit IDS X-Wave protocol. Okay, and buttons 2 and 4, IDS key lock protocol. Okay, so big note there. This caught me out the other day. I forgot to switch it to the X-Wave, and I couldn't get my button 2 and 4. I need to realize that this point was actually made, and I didn't quite read it properly. So please note that. Okay, so, okay. So remote transmitter button defaults. Each button can be changed individually. To change a button from one protocol to another, hold the button down until the LED turns off, about 10 seconds. So I think it's a little longer than 10 seconds because I struggle to change mine. So basically you do hold it down. The LED then goes on. It then starts flashing. And then eventually, once it's finished flashing, it either goes on again or it switches off. So once it's switched off, that's when you let the button go. So mine took about a good 20 seconds, maybe even 30 seconds to do it. So 10 seconds, I think, is a little short. That's what I was going by, and it wasn't quite working. So you do need to hold it a little longer until that LED actually does go off. Once it's gone off, that means it would have switched to the IDS X-Wave protocol, not the key lock protocol. Okay. Okay, you can still learn a remote to remote the old IDS way, or you can learn the remote using option 20. Okay, so if you enter 20 followed by star, enter the user ARM disarm code followed by star, press any button on the remote transmitter and keep pressing until the beep confirms the remote is learned. Okay. Button functions can be changed from the factory defaults discussed before using option 23. Okay, so you can change the 1, 2, 3, 4 options on your keypad on the remote to do what you want them to do rather than just what they are programmed as default, and that you can do with location 23. So 23 followed by star key, enter the button number that you want to change, example button 2, followed by star key, and then enter the option from the table below by, okay, so the table below is in your manual. It doesn't obviously show up on your screens, but I'll run through that table, show you what, to just give you a brief explanation of what each one of those numbers mean. So whichever option you're going to be doing, followed by your star key again. So let me run through that again. So it's 23 followed by star. Enter a button number that you want to change. So enter your button number. That'll be 2. In this case, we're going to program button 2, which is the black button on the picture over here. That's button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. I think that is in your manual as well. So just, it's not on the slide. So just note that this is button 1, this is button 2, this is button 3, and this is button 4. Okay, so 23 star, the button that you want to program, in this case, we will call it 2. Then the options from the table below, which I'll run through. So 0 is no action, 1 is arm, 2 is stay arm, 3 is stay and go, 4 is panic, 5 is PGM1 on for 2 seconds, 6 is PGM2 on for 2 seconds, 7 PGM3 on for 2 seconds, 8 is PGM4 on for 2 seconds, 9 PGM5 on for 2 seconds. And then we go to option 10, which is PGM for toggle. 11 is PGM2 toggle. 12 is PGM3 toggle. 13 PGM4 toggle. And 14 PGM5 toggle. Okay, so let me quickly run through this with you. I'm going to show you on the keypad how I'm going to add a remote. So I will use I will get it to trigger my PMG5 and then show you that it triggers that same LED that triggered on the for my fire. The same LED will trigger for my PMG5. Okay, just switch over here quickly. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. Let me just quickly go back into this programming here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 star. We got 23 star. 2 for my button star, and then I want 9, which is already programmed, as you can see. 4 and 1, which is 4 is 8 and 1 is 1, so that's 9. So that's 9. I'll put it in again anyway, and then hash out there. Okay, with a bit of luck now. I'll put my LED PMG, and I'll press the button 2, and there we go. LEDs come on and switch back off because I put it on PMG5 with a PMG5 with a pulse, which was location 9 on the programming. So there we go again. Press 2, LED stays on, and we are programmed to use the remote for PGM2. Okay, so with the IDS 806 panel, the end user now has the option to set the time and date from the user menu. So you no longer need to go all the way into the installer menu, but you can still do it from there, obviously. But you can now do it from the user menu as well. So time is entered in 24-hour format. For example, 1 o'clock in the afternoon will be 1300 hours, or 13 colons, or 1300. So you enter the main menu with number 40, followed by star, enter the time, 1300 for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, followed by star. Okay, so same thing with the changing the date. The date is entered in a day, month, year format, for example. 15, what is today? For example, 13/05/20. Okay. So again, you enter the main menu, your location 41, followed by star key, enter the date of 13/05/20, and that will then press your star key, and that'll save the date. And that sort of brings us back to the end of the whole presentation, or the training. Great, thanks you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheerio, everyone.